I showed up to my family's holiday brunch with my kids. My dad smirked. Your presence always makes things harder. You should leave. My sister laughed. My kids asked, why didn't Grandpa want us? I just replied, let's go home. And we drove away. An hour later, my mom called. Why is the bank card locked? We can't even pay the brunch tab. I ignored them until they went crazy. And they finally made me angry enough to do something about it. Really do something. And when that switch flipped, there was no going back. It wasn't just the brunch. It wasn't just one comment. It was years stacked on top of each other like a slow building landslide. And that morning, it finally collapsed. I used to think that I had to keep the peace because I was the broken one. The single mom, the one whose husband traded in our family for a shiny new one across town. I thought being quiet meant being strong. That if I just swallowed the bitterness long enough, they'd eventually respect me again. I was wrong. The holiday brunch was supposed to be something nice, something for the kids. I told them we were going to see Grandma and Grandpa, their aunts, everyone. They even helped pick out gifts, little handmade things, drawings, a dollar store frame with a photo of all of us from 2 years ago. My daughter wanted to give it to my mom. When we walked in, the entire table went silent. My dad didn't even try to hide the smirk. Your presence always makes things harder. You should leave. Katie laughed like it was some dark inside joke. Amanda rolled her eyes like she was already annoyed. I hadn't stormed out yet, and my kids, they just froze, still holding their tiny gifts like they'd done something wrong. Then came the question, why didn't Grandpa want us? It gutted me more than anything my parents had ever said. And they'd said a lot. But this was the moment I realized they didn't care about my kids, not really. They never did. I didn't say a word to them. I looked at my kids and said, let's go home. No tears, no begging, no scenes, just silence. We got back in the car, and while they played with their toys in the living room, I sat at the kitchen counter and opened the banking app. The family card, the one my parents used like a shared piggy bank, despite never asking where the money came from, was still active, still draining from my account. So I froze it. One click. I waited. About an hour later, the first call came in. My mom, then Katie, then Amanda sent a half-panicked text to the family group chat. Why is the card not working? We can't pay for brunch. Are you home? Can you check it? Then came another one. Did you mess with the bank? Was there fraud? No, just me. No one asked if the kids were okay. No one asked why we left, not even my mom, who always claimed she loved them so much. The only thing that seemed to matter was the bill. That was when I knew I'd been holding up a whole house of cards, and how I was ready to knock the rest of it down. The morning after brunch, I woke up feeling lighter. Not happy, not yet, but clear. For the first time in years, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't the peacekeeper, the apologizer, the invisible wallet they tapped whenever someone else in the family made a mess. I was just done. I made pancakes for the kids. They were quiet, still unsure if they'd done something wrong. I told them we'd have our own brunch next weekend. Just the 3 of us. Maybe we'd go to the zoo afterward. My daughter nodded. My son didn't say anything, just hugged me without asking. Then the phone rang. Katie. No apology, no explanation, no mention of what happened at brunch. Hey, so the rent's due today and Mom said you might be able to send it since their card's frozen for some reason. That was it. Like she was ordering takeout. I didn't even argue. I just ended the call. Nothing more to say. Katie's been living in that downtown apartment for 2 years. It's too expensive and she's been late on rent more times than I can count. Every time she ran to Mom, who then quietly texted me for a little help, I said yes every time. I justified it, told myself Katie was younger, figuring things out, and that I was just being supportive. But what I really was stupid. I gave because I thought if I kept giving, they'd eventually respect me. Maybe even love my kids the way they deserved. That if I just filled every gap, they'd see me as something more than the family embarrassment, the single mom, the one who got left. That fantasy died yesterday. 2 hours later, my mom called. This time, her voice was soft, concerned. The tone she used when she was about to manipulate me. She asked if everything was all right, if I'd meant to accidentally freeze the card. Said Katie was in a tough spot and it would mean a lot if I could cover her rent just this once. I asked her why she didn't mention what Dad said to me or the fact that the kids heard it. She paused, then changed the subject. He didn't care, not really. I told her I wouldn't be sending anything. She started to say something, but I hung up. I sat there after the call, not crying, not angry anymore, just stunned at how transactional our whole relationship had become. And then Amanda texted me. She said she wasn't taking sides, but that freezing the card made the whole brunch awkward. And I could have just talked to them instead of making a scene. She actually used those words, like I threw a tantrum instead of quietly walking out with 2 confused, humiliated kids. The one who borrowed $1,800 last spring for urgent car repairs and swore she'd pay it back after her promotion. The one who went on vacation a month later and never mentioned the money again. I let it go, told myself she had a new job, a lot going on, that she'd pay it when she could. Now I looked at that silence differently. They all assumed I just swallowed the disrespect again and again because I always had. But now I wanted that money back. I wasn't going to ask nicely. I was going to take it, and I knew exactly how. It wasn't about the money. It was about drawing the line. The one they'd never seen before because I'd never had the guts to draw it. Not until now. Amanda hadn't spoken a word to me since the brunch. Not a call, not a text about the kids, nothing. Then 2 days later, out of nowhere, she sends me a picture of her new shoes. "Thought of you," she wrote. I stared at the screen for a long second. Designer shoes. The kind she used to say were too bougie. Unless she was being treated. She had definitely treated herself this time. I scrolled up in our thread until I hit that one message from months ago. The one where she promised she'd return the $1,800 she borrowed. She had called crying that day. Said her car wouldn't start and the mechanic said the whole electrical system needed replacing. She didn't want to tell Mom or Dad because they were already stressed about Katie's money problems. She promised she'd pay me back after her promotion. She even sent me a heart emoji. That was in April. I let it go for months. Never brought it up because we were family and I didn't want to be that person. But I was already done with being that person. So I opened my bank app and sent a formal request for $1,800. No message, no explanation, just the number and the due date, today. 5 minutes later, she messaged me. "Are you kidding me right now?" Not sorry I forgot, not can we talk, just outraged that I'd finally drawn a line. I didn't answer, I didn't have to. I had already made other plans. I called the travel agent I used to work with years ago and asked if there were any last-minute deals for a beach resort. Nothing huge, just somewhere warm with a pool and space for the kids to breathe. She found one, a cozy cabin suite at a family-friendly place with a kids' activity center. Dolphin tours, the works. Cost me $1,682, and I paid for it with Amanda's money the minute she finally sent it. No thank you, of course, no apology. Just a cold transfer like she was settling a business debt. Maybe she was, because I was done pretending we were anything more than that. That night, while packing my kids' bags, I realized something. I hadn't felt this excited in years. It was our first real vacation. No guilt, no awkward family texts, no tense silences. Just me and the 2 people who never made me feel like I wasn't enough. I didn't post anything on social media. Didn't tell anyone. I wanted them to find out the same way I had to find out. They never really saw me as one of them. Slowly, painfully, with no warning. Let them sit there wondering why I wasn't responding to their passive-aggressive texts. Let them guess where we were while they scrambled to figure out who was going to pay Katie's rent next month or why Mom couldn't order groceries with the family card. I wasn't their crutch anymore. I wasn't their secret donor. I was gone. And every time I zipped up a suitcase, I reminded myself, this isn't revenge. This is repair. Here's part 4 of Megan's story with a new layer of tension and an unexpected twist. Part 4, the photos they weren't supposed to see. The morning of the trip, I woke up before the kids and just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the suitcase. I still couldn't believe I'd actually done it. Booked a vacation, cut the financial leash, taken back my peace. It felt surreal, like I was borrowing someone else's life for a few days. I left my phone on silent, stuffed in my bag. Whatever drama they were cooking up back home could wait. We landed just after noon. Warm air, palm trees, the sound of waves instead of tension. The kids ran straight to the beach like they'd been waiting their whole lives. I took a picture of them standing in the surf and smiled. Really smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I gave in and checked my phone. 12 missed calls, mostly from Mom and Amanda. One voicemail from Katie crying about an eviction notice. I didn't listen to it. I opened Instagram instead. I had posted one photo, just one, a sunset. No faces, no tags, just a quiet flex that I was somewhere better. But that was enough. Amanda had commented under it. Wow, must be nice to use family money for personal vacations. That was unexpected. First, she had the nerve to post it publicly. Second, she still believed the money I used was hers, like I somehow stolen from the family pot. I hadn't even responded when she sent me the money. She knew it was for the debt she owed, and now she was twisting it like I was the one taking advantage. I didn't reply, but I didn't need to. The next morning, something happened I didn't plan. My grandfather called. He never calls, ever. He usually just shows up during holidays, sits quietly in the corner, and watches the chaos unfold. He's the only one who's ever spoken kindly to me without strings attached. When I answered, he just said, I saw the photo. I'm glad you finally left. I didn't know what to say. He told me he was coming into town next week and wanted to take the kids out. No big family dinner, just him, me, and them. Said he had something he wanted to discuss in person. Then he added, your mother isn't going to like it, but that's never stopped me before. That was it. He hung up. I sat there staring at the phone trying to figure out what that meant. My grandfather didn't do drama. He didn't do sides. But something had shifted. And if he was taking a stand, it meant more was coming. I looked out at the beach and thought, maybe this trip was more than just a break. Maybe it was the beginning of a real fallout. And for once, I wasn't scared of it. We came home from the trip last Sunday night, sunburned, sandy, and glowing. The kids passed out in the back seat before we even made it onto our street. I didn't wake them, just carried each of them inside, tucked them in, then stood for a moment in the hallway, listening to their quiet breathing. It was the first time I didn't come home dreading what was waiting for me. I turned on my phone and it lit up like a dying firework. 23 messages, 8 missed calls, 2 voicemails. My mother had left a long drawn-out message that started sweet and ended bitter. Amanda had sent a string of texts alternating between pretending nothing had happened and accusing me of ruining the dynamic of the family. Katie had gone from, please call me, to, I don't need your help anyway in under an hour. None of them asked how the kids were. None of them asked if we had a good time. All they cared about was the shift, the sudden quiet vacuum where my support used to be. I ignored every message. I didn't even open the voicemails. The next morning, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera and blinked. It was my grandfather. He hadn't called. He never did. He just showed up the way he always had when he knew something was wrong, but didn't want to make a scene about it. He came in, nodded once, and sat down at the table without saying much. I made us coffee. The kids were still sleeping, and for once the house felt like a place he could breathe to. I heard about the brunch, he said. That was all he said about it. No lecture, no advice, just acknowledgement. Then he handed me a thick manila folder. I made some changes. Don't tell them. The lawyer will. Inside were pages I couldn't even process at first. A trust, one that used to be divided evenly between my mom, Amanda, and Katie, and now in my name alone. $300,000. He said he'd watched for years. The way they talked to me, the way they treated my kids, the way they always expected me to pick up the slack but never once said thank you. I used to think they'd grow out of it, he said, but now I know they won't. He stood to leave, and just before he opened the door, he turned to me. You're not the weak one. You're just the only one they couldn't control. 3 days later, they found out. Amanda was the first to try a soft approach. She sent a message asking if I wanted to grab lunch. Just the two of us. No drama. I didn't reply. Katie left a voice memo sniffling, talking about how stressed she'd been lately and how she missed having her big sister to talk to. I blocked her. My mom sent me a picture of my kids when they were toddlers, then wrote, "Let's put the past behind us. I'd love to take them out for ice cream." I didn't respond because it wasn't about reconciliation. It wasn't about love. It was about proximity to the money. They didn't feel sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry for what they might lose. And by the time they realized the door was closed, they were already on the outside. This wasn't revenge. I didn't gloat. I didn't announce anything. I just kept living. And that was the part they never expected. Because when someone stops trying to be accepted, there's nothing left for you to take from them. Here's part 6, the final part of Megan's story with a layer of intrigue to close the arc. Part 6. They thought they'd wait me out. By the following week, the silence for me must have started to feel threatening to them. That's when the rumors started. Amanda told someone, maybe her boyfriend's sister, maybe someone at her job, that I had manipulated our grandfather, that I must have talked him into changing everything while he was in a fragile state. He even hinted that I might have forged something. I found out from a friend of a friend. They didn't know Amanda was talking about me until they connected a few dots. When they told me, I just laughed. Amanda had always been a bad liar and worse at hiding her fear when she felt power slipping away. Katie followed up a day later with a long message about family being forever and how holding grudges doesn't heal wounds. She said she was willing to talk if I was ready to come back to the table. Back to the table like I'd somehow gotten up and stormed away for no reason. Like I was the one who broke something. Then came the letter. A real letter from my mother. Folded neatly, mailed to my house, written in careful script. Like she was applying for forgiveness on paper. She wrote that she was disappointed in how things have turned out. That she hoped I knew none of it was personal and that she'd like to have a private meeting with me to discuss the future of the family. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing to discuss. That week, I met with the lawyer my grandfather had recommended. We finalized the trust paperwork, adjusted some things, and he told me quietly that my grandfather had also named me the sole medical proxy for any future care decisions. It felt heavy. Not like a victory, more like someone finally handing me the keys to a house no one else knew how to care for. Before I left, the lawyer asked if I wanted to leave a statement for the family for when the rest of the estate was read someday. I thought about it and I wrote something simple. I didn't leave the family. I just stopped standing where I wasn't welcome. A week later, my grandfather invited me and the kids to dinner. No one else was there, just us. After dessert, He handed each of them a small box. Inside were gold coins he had collected over the years. Real ones. He said they were his way of saying, "Start your own stories." That's the moment I realized this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of when I finally got to write on my own terms. They'll keep talking, spinning new angles, waiting for me to come crawling back, but I never left broken. I left awake. The first update. It's been 3 weeks since I walked away from them. Really walked away, not just physically. But from that desperate arcing need to be accepted by people who never planned to offer anything close to love. I've replayed every part of it in my head. Not out of regret, but because it still doesn't feel real sometimes. How quickly they turned, how quiet the house is now, how calm I've become. I wasn't planning to write anything else, but I've been reading through the messages from strangers, people who said I helped them feel less alone. Some even said they found the courage to confront their own families. And that's what made me sit down to do this. Because I owe all of you a thank you and maybe one last chapter. A lot's happened in these 3 weeks. The lawyer finalized everything. The trust, the changes to the estate, it's done. They were all officially notified. Amanda, Katie, my mom. I didn't need to be there for any of it. I didn't want to be. Amanda sent me a long email the day after. The tone was professional, like a legal negotiation. She said she was disappointed in how things were handled and asked if I'd be open to a conversation outside of attorneys. I didn't reply. She followed it up with a message saying she wanted clarity about what Grandpa promised her, as if any of this was ever hers by right. Katie didn't reach out, but I know from someone who still talks to her that she's moved in with a friend after missing rent. I guess she figured Mom would cover it again, and for once, Mom couldn't. Speaking of my mother, she came to my house, parked outside for over an hour, just sat there staring at the porch, probably hoping I'd come out and play peacemaker one more time. She didn't knock, I didn't go out. I watched from behind the curtain until she left. She sent a letter the next day, a real one mailed to my door. She said, was sad, said I was being influenced and letting old wounds fester. She wrote that family is bigger than hurt and asked me to come over so we could reset. There was no apology, not for what my dad said in front of my kids, not for laughing with Katie, not for letting Amanda pretend her debt to me never existed, just more careful wording designed to protect herself. I shredded the letter without reading it again. My grandfather kept his word. We've had dinner together twice a week. He's teaching my son how to carve little wooden puzzles, and my daughter calls him her beach trip grandpa. He doesn't bring up the rest of the family, and I don't ask about them. It's unspoken, but we both know what was lost and what was finally protected. As for me, I've been living real life, not survival. I signed the kids up for swimming lessons. I painted our living room a soft green that feels like starting over. I even made plans for another trip next spring, somewhere with mountains this time. I still get moments, quiet ones late at night, when I wonder if I should feel more guilt. When I remember how for most of my adult life, I thought keeping the peace meant letting myself be torn apart a little more every year. But when I think about the way my daughter looked at me on the beach, holding my hand and smiling like the world was wide open again, and I know I made the right choice. So, is this the end of the story? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there will be more updates. Something happens. Maybe I'll come back here, maybe not. But for now, this is the last page. To everyone who followed this, who took the time to care, to reach out, to share, thank you. You reminded me that walking away isn't giving up. It's finally choosing.